we're going to be utilizing the preaching skills and talents of our faculty, and each one will take a different topic each week and will address the lesson they've been assigned. And so we're looking forward to that. Between now and then, we're going to continue this study. We also have coming up soon the School of Preaching graduation. That'll be in the middle of June. And our Vacation Bible School is the first week of June. And our young people will go on a campaign the second week of June. And that third weekend, third Lord's Day, will be graduation. And then there's the Foundations program coming up in June. Busy, busy month. And so we look forward to all those activities and pray for the success of all of them. So tonight we're studying habits of the mind, and I want you to think about not just the blessings that you have, but I don't want you to forget, and I don't want to forget, what we might call the little blessings. And that has to do with what makes us really happy and what makes us a contented people. Now, the Lord is all for our happiness. The Lord wants us to be content. And the Lord wants us to have joy deep within. I've said before, there is a difference, in my opinion, between joy and happiness. Joy being that which is deep within. You know, even when you're in the midst of a storm or great trial, you should still have the joy of a Christian deep within. And joy is something internal, while happiness may be something that's external. But I need to try to make up my mind to be as happy as possible. Now, there's some external factors that happen in your life and mine that don't really bring us happiness. And some things aren't supposed to bring us happiness. It would be strange indeed if we were happy over some things. But you know, if you can have the joy that a Christian is to have, something deep within that's provided by Christ, and overlay that with happiness, that's a blessing indeed. So sometimes we have to look for happiness. And we have to set our minds on what can truly make us a happy and contented people. Now, I heard the story of a man who was under a lot of stress at his job, and to relieve the stress, he would take walks in the afternoon. And eventually he came to find out that on those walks, his memory was stirred. And he said, for example, he would walk by a particular home that had a particular bush in the yard with a blossom on that bush in the springtime. There was an aroma that immediately took him back to his childhood, to something that he remembered at his home when he was just a boy. And he said he could remember playing in the front yard with friends, not a care in the world. And he could also remember that aroma that he would smell. And he said that particular scent took him back in time to just a simple pleasure. And he said one day he asked the man who lived there, who was out in his front yard, he said, "Sir, I've got a story to tell you." And he told him why he loved to walk past his house and that aroma. He said, "Would you mind if I just took one of those blossoms?" And the man said, "Sure, you go right ahead." He said he took it home with him and enjoyed the aroma. What I'm saying is there are just some little things in life that can bring us pleasure that will not cost us anything financially. And we need to take great joy in that. But I am convinced there are a lot of people, and maybe even some Christians, who really have a hard time enjoying their blessings because they can't see the blessings because of their problems. And the problems are so consuming, they can't enjoy the blessings they have in life. If a person, for example, is hurt in some particular way, maybe, let's say, for example, there is a husband and wife who have 3 children. And the oldest child is the one who, along with his husband, wife, whatever it may be, they have become estranged from mom and dad. The middle child, the younger child, maintain a close association with their parents. All three children have produced grandchildren. Okay? And so here is this set of parents who don't see this oldest child nor his children or her children. They have a great relationship with the second and third child and all their children. But this couple is miserable all of the time because the oldest child and his children aren't close to them. And therefore, as a result of that, they cut off, to a great extent, the relationship they have with the second and third child and their children because they can't get over what's happened with the first one. And it may be that they're too afraid to get close to the grandchildren that they can see all the time, because here's what happened with our first child and his children. And the point I'm making is this: here are some blessings that they're refusing to see because of what's happened with another child. That is unfortunate. It is unfair to the second, third child, and it causes misery. There are a lot of people who go through a bitter divorce. It could be that the person that I'm talking about is a person who's gone through divorce who is innocent, in the sense that this person tried to keep the marriage together. This person didn't violate the marriage vows, but nevertheless the person's gone through this divorce. And that's a terrible thing. But then this person cannot see anything else good in life because this person can't get over that divorce. There are a lot of things that we can enjoy on a daily basis that we don't see because of the cares of this life and the trouble that we often face. Now, as we think about the mind and getting the mind right, I want to suggest something to you tonight that I think is entirely biblical. And that is that we learn to appreciate what we might call the little things in life. I want you to do something after this class tonight. I want you to think when you get home about your day and ask yourself this question: what during my day made me a happier person? Or maybe the past week. What's made me a happier person? What little thing happened that brought a smile on my face? What is it that's bringing me contentment? One thing that I can relate to in my own life, and I think a lot of you can too, is you think back to another time, and I can remember it even from my boyhood and maybe examining the lives of those in my grandparents' generation, of how that generation particularly learned how to be content with little. And in many ways it seemed that they enjoyed life a whole lot more than people enjoy life today. It might be just living in a small home, but one they owned. They worked hard, grew a lot of their own food, and maybe just sit at night and listen to a radio, but were a contented people and could go sleep at night and sleep all night. Different time. We live now when we have so much that is material in nature, and if you look at studies or you just observe what's around you, people seem more anxious. People will admit not happy. And it teaches us that all the gadgets we have don't produce more happiness. And we live by this idea, at least many do, that if I can just get this one more thing, then I'll be happy. Then I'll be contented. And so God does not want us to gain happiness and contentment that way, because that's a doctrine of the devil, isn't it? always just reaching, trying to grab something. It's almost, I almost have it. But you go through life trying to find something out there that's going to bring you this happiness and this contentment. And these things that you're trying to reach, you never can grasp. And yet what would have made a person content, if the person would have just have learned to have changed his mind, his attitude, was available all the time, wasn't it? Maybe it's just simple peace with God and peace with your fellow man. Enjoying just the simple things. And so, my wife is better than I am about this, because, you know, I'm just, you know, don't have a lot of money, but I just as soon, if I possibly could, scrape up the change and get somebody to come over and put out your mulch and things of that area. No. She said, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. We'll go get it ourselves, and then we'll spread out that milk, and then we can say, we work hard, we did it. Yeah, I'm tired. Yeah. She likes all that. And she's right, okay? Because she's learned to take a lot of pride and to get a lot of happiness just in doing simple tasks like that. And you can say, we did it. We didn't rely on somebody else. We didn't pay them to do it. We saved our money. We did it ourselves. And so there's great truth to this idea that little things in life, the little blessings, can make you happy. So maybe you've opened a note card before from somebody, and it put a smile on your face. You heard from somebody, you haven't heard from that person in a while. Or maybe it's through social media. You contact, somebody contacts you, you haven't talked to that person in a long time. And then you might say to yourself, well, that made me feel so good, I'm going to turn around and do that to somebody else. And we have all this available to us today where we can make those kind of contacts. Why not do it, you know? Because I have found that it really is in these personal relationships we build where true joy in life is found. It's all about people, isn't it? It's all about relationships. All about the relationship you maintain with the heavenly and the relationships you build with your brethren. All about people. Well, the devil says it's not about that. Matter of fact, the devil teaches us not to love people and to run over people. The devil teaches another doctrine. And it usually is centered around this word, greed, right? Now, greed is what causes people to engage in fraudulent activity, doesn't it? There any of that going on in our world today? Plenty. Fraudulent activity. What can I do to advance myself, even if that means doing something that's fraudulent or against the law, something that's illegal? And maybe I can get somebody to protect me. And we'll be in this thing together. And we'll cheat people. And we'll lie if we have to do that. Well, I, for one, don't want to live that way, and I don't think you do either. And that has a way of catching up with you, doesn't it? And if it doesn't in this life, it will in the life to come. But let me ask this question. Is the Bible against gain? No. It would be wrong to say the Bible's against gain. So we go to 1 Timothy 6, which is a passage we need to read quite often, especially because of the influences around us today. And here's a simple statement that is true because it's found in God's Word. Godliness, or a life of character, godliness, along with contentment, is great gain. And how many words was that having? 6, 7? Yeah, 7 words there. But godliness with contentment is great gain. Because you see, we brought nothing into this old world, and we're not going to carry anything out. You don't have a hearse attached, or rather a U-Haul attached to a hearse, do you? You don't have that. So you're not going to take it with you. Somebody said about a rich fellow, said, wonder how much he left behind. Somebody wiser said he left everything behind, right? He left it all. Left it all. probably left it all for some family members who are going to spend it just like that. Okay? Who are not going to invest properly like maybe the old man did. Greedy for gain. Now, we learn that godliness with contentment, that's great gain. We brought nothing into this world, and it's certain we can carry nothing out. But he says, if we have food and raiment, be content. Well, I think we've all got that. Food and raiment, be content. Yet we have a lot more, don't we? I love George Bailey's statement. We talk about making ends meet, but oh, the ends that we make meet, right? Yeah. I mean, oh, how we're going to get by this month. What we generally mean is this: how am I going to be able to afford all of my luxuries month after month? Okay. It was just amazing when Celicia and I sat down one day, without our children, of course, and we just started discussing the bills each month and what we could do without. It's amazing how the things you could do without, it's just amazing. I'm talking about you could still live and get by without these things. How much it would reduce your debt. I know I don't like to hear it, but I don't have to have, nor do the other members of my family, an iPhone. Nor do we have to have cable, or whatever it is you have. Probably be better off. Cason says, no Bama football in the fall. Nope. But automobiles, got 3 in our driveway. Maybe just need 1. The one we have is too fancy. I mean, if I'm really going to be honest and say, I could get by without all these things, right? And yet, I have lived long enough in this world in which I'm in that I've convinced myself, no, I just can't let go of those things. Just can't do it. Need those things. Now, are they wrong? No, I'm not saying that. Not wrong. You know, John said that he wanted his brethren to prosper even as their souls prosper. So I take that to mean he wanted them to prosper in good health, even materially. And I don't begrudge any brother who prospers more than I do. I've told you before, I just take Brother Keeble's creed, and that is, I'd rather have friends than money, especially if my friends have money. Right? Take care of it. So that's all right. I'm glad when friends prosper. Now I want to tell you, there's some brethren I know that are Christians who made a lot of money through the years who are not nearly as greedy as some who don't have as much. You can be covetous without having a whole lot of money, can't you? And so I think about Abraham and Lot. Abraham was the one with the money. Lot was just along for the ride, being funded largely by Abraham, though it says Lot did have his herd. But it was Abraham who was the CEO of the business. And yet it was Lot who was covetous. Well, when I think about gain and prospering, I think about John's statement there. When are you prospering materially too much? I think it's when your soul is no longer prospering. Okay? He says, I hope you can prosper just as your soul is prospering. Healthy spiritually. I hope you can likewise prosper in other ways. I stood amazed when my mother told me about some relatives of ours when I was home not too long ago of how much their cigarette bill was per month. I mean, just amazing. Okay? And I don't limit it to something like that. All of us could probably look at their bank accounts and say, I can't believe that we spent that much money on this. There was one time, Celicia and I, we were talking about this, at how much we had spent in a given month just out at restaurants. Okay? Couldn't believe it. And boy, when you look at it on paper, then you start thinking, I could do without that, right? That's some areas I could cut. And so this isn't a class tonight on cutting back on our spending, though that may not be a bad thing, but finding contentment. And understanding that contentment doesn't always come in things. Luke 12:15, Jesus says, don't have a covetous, greedy heart. He says, life is not about the abundance or the possession of things. Much more than that. Now, if I'm looking to these material things to bring me happiness and contentment, that could show that I am not fully trusting God, couldn't it? When He's already promised to take care of me, and then so much more. He says, if you have food and raiment, be content. And yet, all the people I know who have named the name of Christ have so much more, especially here in America. Have so much more. Yet we have to ask ourselves, are we truly happy with what we do have? Now he goes on to say, having food and clothes and raiment, let us therewith be content, because he says, they that will be rich, and notice that, they that what? Will be rich, who make that their number one goal. They fall into temptation and a snare, and into many foolish and hurtful lusts, which drown men in destruction and perdition. You see, that was the problem with Lot. Lot lived in a religious environment with the patriarch Abraham. And would Lot have claimed an allegiance to God? Yes. He's learned from Uncle Abraham. And yet when the opportunity arises, he makes a decision based on a covetous heart, doesn't he? Here's how I know his decision was wrong, is because it was only the magnanimous attitude of Abraham that allowed him to decide. Now, just because somebody comes along and is nice doesn't mean that you can't always respond with kindness as well, especially considering the situation and who's talking. When Uncle Abraham comes and he says, son, he might have called Lot's son. He was looking after him like a father. He said, I want to tell you something. He says, there's some feuding going on among our herdmen, and this isn't good. I tell you what, we've got the land out here before us. Let's separate ourselves for a while, so this will die down, and we won't have this kind of feud, because you see, we're brethren. Okay. Now, if indeed Lot is going to be just as concerned about family relations and unity, Lot will say something like this. Oh, Uncle Abraham, listen, I'm following you. I wouldn't be nearly as blessed without you. Here's what I want you to do. And I'm in full agreement. But what I want you to do is you select what you want. Would that have hurt Lot in any way? No. As long as Abraham is a God-fearing man and God is taking care of him, then Lot's just fine. I want to stay with somebody like Abraham, don't you? I want to stay close by somebody like Abraham. I want to stay close by somebody like the prodigal's father, don't you? That's where I want to stay. So I'm all right. I'm secure. But Lot looked at the well-watered plains of Jordan, that land towards Sodom and Gomorrah, and he pitched his tent in that direction. And as a result of that direction, this particular passage came to fruition in his life. And so they that will be rich fall into a temptation and a snare into many foolish, hurtful lusts, which drown men in destruction and perdition. Do you think that the prodigal left home thinking that he was going to lose everything? No. I don't think he had a good understanding of money, a good understanding of finances. But he never did expect the money to run out, did he? Oh, no. He thinks he's going off somewhere and he'll have more money, probably. He's got to get out of the house, though. He's hemmed in there. And he can't be himself. And he's got to go find himself. And to find himself, he's got to leave. But he is dependent upon this father, or else he wouldn't have said, give me my part of the inheritance. Give it to me. I don't know if you want to go, just go on your own. You know, if you think you get paid. No, he can't do that. See, he's got to ask the one on who's he's dependent. But you ever notice somebody with that kind of mindset stays dependent? Stays that way. So here's the prodigal. You shouldn't have expected somebody like him to go out and make some money because he has a dependent mindset. And even in his repentance, though I commend it, what does he do? I got to go back home to the one I can depend upon, right? I got to go back there. Now, this particular text says those that want to be rich fall into this temptation, and it's a snare. Isn't that a warning to elders, those who are greedy of filthy lucre, not to put in that position of being overseers of the flock? For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil, which while some coveted after, they've erred from the faith and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. Well, that came to fruition. That came to be a reality in the life of Lot, in the life of the prodigal. And so we learn that God says there's another kind of contentment that's real, that's genuine. I want you to have it. So he says, thou, O man of God, flee these things. Follow after righteousness and godliness and faith and love and patience and meekness. And fight the good fight of faith and lay hold of eternal life. He's just talking to those who read this material, which include Timothy. Here's how you're happy. Here's where your contentment is found. There is contentment in that granddaddy who has that little house, who has spent his lifetime working hard and paying off that little house, who gets up every morning knowing that he's got food to eat, who gets up every morning knowing that after he's had his breakfast, he can go out here and till the ground and grow some food and share it with other people. And then he sits on his front porch after some lunch and he reads his Bible and he dwells upon those things that are holy and righteous. Is there contentment in that? There's contentment in that life. There's contentment there. And yet, that's not where people think you can find contentment today. And that is really a shame. And that's why a lot of people look at the life that somebody like that might live and they say, I don't want that. That's boring, you know. I mean, that's a word that's tossed around a lot. No, that's boring, you know. And I sometimes say, just to aggravate my children, they say, what are you going to do? I'm just going to sit here today and read a book. I'm just going to sit outside on the back porch with your mother, drink a glass of tea or lemonade, and we'll see if a deer or a rabbit comes out from the woods. And then I say this, I love boredom. I say, when things are boring, that means peace. When things are boring, that means that I can be content. I'm not having to be all in turmoil over things going on in my life or in the world. I'm just sitting here soaking all this in. But that hasn't been always true, right? That has to be developed, doesn't it? After you've had a little bit of experience, you learn that. And so we take these words from verse 6 of 1 Timothy 6. Godliness with contentment is great gain. And therefore, when you do things that are out of the ordinary, I mean, that's exciting, isn't it? You know, you take the person who, you ever been around that person before who's just traveling all the time and the person's worn out and you say, oh, it must be so exciting, you know, to go here and there, you know. No, I'm just worn out, I'm too tired, you know. But every once in a while we do a little travel, you know, take a trip somewhere. It does you a lot of good, you don't ever forget it, you know the memories you've made. Now this is not, this here I'm going to get your opinion, just not meant to offend anybody. Your thing for vacation may be going down to Disney World. That's fine. You know how many times I've gone to Disney World? Twice. You know how many more times I'm going? 0. Now let me explain that. Nothing wrong with some of you, that's what you like to do. That's fine. You got the money to do it, go ahead. Here's what I said, though, about Disney World, is you need a vacation from Disney World, don't you? I mean, once you've gone down there and you've done all that, you need a vacation after all that. So we've been fortunate, been able to take our children when they were younger, and then we able to take them as teenagers. That's what they said. They wanted to go again when they're teenagers, and so we did that. And so I said, we've had a good time, and we've made some wonderful memories, and we've got our picture albums that show what we did, and we've got a few mementos from that trip. And now I said, I'm not going back again until I go back with you guys, and you all pay for it, and the grandkids are with us. All right, that's what I'll talk to you. I mean, I've done that. Okay, I've done that, and that was fun. That was good. I want to go see something else now, and something that's not so fast paced. So what I'm saying, if you do something all the time, the same thing all the time, it just seems to me after a while you won't really appreciate that too much. You know. And I'll tell you that, you take going out to eat. And I like to go out to eat. But after a while you're not going to have to eat them just after, having done that quite repetitively. That just wasn't any good. But then let me just take a while to cut back on my eating. And take a while to eat things that are a little more healthy. Drink a lot more water instead of a soft drink. And after about a month of doing that, hey, it's time to go out to eat. And you go out and you enjoy a meal. Number one, I can't eat what I typically would. I eat a smaller portion, but it's the best meal of my life. So good. And so I have to learn, to be careful about doing too much and spending too much and letting things that ought to bring us great joy become too familiar, or it'll lose that. Other things we lose because we take for granted are just a sunset, maybe. That's free, by the way. When's the last time you just observed the sunset? Thought, my God sure is great. What an artist. Okay? Let your mind change. Start thinking that way. Or I know when my children were younger and I hadn't, I'd gone through my 20s and been through my teen years, I think about things like this till we're walking along a pathway together and they want to pick up a leaf and just examine it. I'm like, that is pretty creative, isn't it? Or turn over a rock and look at some bugs running all over the place. That's fascinating. And I thought, because I've gotten older, I've lost some of that wonder. And when I lose some of that wonder, I'm not as content as I used to be. And by examining God's creation, it can help me to be more appreciative of what He's given me to enjoy free of charge. Don't even have to pay for it. And it's there available to us every day. And so there are little things out there that can bring us a whole lot of joy if we will allow that to happen. One of the things I said in marriage family seminar preaching a few weeks ago in Alabama, and I say this every time I speak on marriage and family, and that is, you don't have to be busy doing something every night of the week. And a lot of parents in my generation and those who are younger have that idea, and they talk about it, and you can tell how exhausted they are, but it's, oh, look how wonderful we are because, they include church services, many of them do, and that's commendable, but we got to go to this kind of practice this night, and we go to another kind tomorrow night, and we've got this going on Wednesday night, and just, sometimes you just stay home. And enjoy home. It's all right. And there's no way that in a fast-paced society like we're living today, that without being careful, we can still be spiritual. Because there's too much that consumes our time. Now here's one of the problems, and that is the world all around you, particularly advertisers and things of that nature, are telling you, here are the things that are available to you today, and you've got to have it, right? But you don't have to. But they tell us, here's the newest thing. And you need, because if you don't, you're not going to be content and know this, everybody else around you is going to have it. And if we're not careful, we'll develop that same mindset that children have. How many times, Celicia knows this is true, and those of you who are parents, you've reared your children know this is true. Your children come to you, everybody has it. Everybody does. Whether it's this new, whatever new toy it is, whatever you get, whatever, you know, everybody has it. Well, number one, that doesn't mean we have to have it. But the second thing is, not everybody has it. So what I do is I get out the yearbook with my children, I start going down there, now does this person have it? Well, I don't know. This one has it. You said everybody has it. So here, this one has it. Well, I don't know about it. No, you said everybody, right? No, everybody doesn't have it. Okay? And that's all right. We're going to have to change our way of thinking, though, aren't we? If we're going to be content with such things that we have. What I'm telling you is, enjoy all that life has to offer. Do what you can do, what you can afford to do, that you enjoy doing. That's fine, as long as in and of itself it's good and it's clean. But don't become dependent upon things to make you happy. In fact, the little blessings in life, in whatever shape or form they come to you, is what will make you a happy, contented person. And first and foremost, of course, you have to be found in Christ, don't you? And once you're content in Him, then you can enjoy life to the fullest. And so, tonight's lesson, changing the mind to be content with such things as we have, or don't have. Think about that. All right, appreciate it.